So, welcome back to the Next Big Thing podcast. Today, we are here with actress, writer, and podcaster Muretta Moss to talk about her most recent projects. So, hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining today. I just wanted to start off by having you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about how you got into acting, writing, and the industry itself.
Sure. Oh, my name's Muretta. I am Muretta Moss, even though I'd like to think that I'm just like Muretta, the one namer. So acting was something that I kind of found a little later in life. I did not come out of the womb wanting to be on stage, or at least not knowing that's what I wanted. I'm one of those people that likes to do like lots of things, but like excelling, just like maybe not excelling at everything, but like I've tried every sport when I was growing up, and like in all the groups. And when I was in college, I was just like, oh, you have to like settle down, you have to zone in onto something. And I tried. I started with social work, went to journalism. I don't even know what else. And this was just like in the first year. And then I found they were doing like a pretty big film on my campus, and I was a part of it. And it just like expanded my world into what was possible. And I realized that acting is something that is like was a tangible thing. And I started taking acting classes, and I got an agent, and I started, like doing indie films and doing like regional commercials, and just like slowly like grew out from there. But I just say that I know that TV and film always existed. Like I loved, there was a show, Kids Incorporated, which was like, it was like the Mickey Mouse Club, but it wasn't as like whatever that is. And I like loved it, but I just didn't think it was possible until I actually saw it. I guess that's just how my brain works. Yeah.
Going back on when you first started into acting, I know that you were into a lot of indie films and such. Can you tell me a little bit about like getting into the indie scene?
I think things have changed so much over like the last few years, a decade, I don't know. Like that we still had these like online casting sites even back then. And I think a lot of times I would just, self-submit. But in Atlanta, there was like, there still is like, there's just very passionate people here who are incredible writers, and outside of like a studio platform, and they want their stories to be told. And I remember sitting in on just like screenwriter groups and being like an actor just at
Mm-hmm.
table reads that were for the purpose of the screenwriters. And then eventually like they crowdfunded and got those films made. And because of just sitting at the table originally, I usually was able to get in that way from that process. Yeah, I mean, it has to do with a lot of networking, but also just showing up, and just showing up. I think when you say you're going to, and doing it like with a good attitude and well, I think is so much of the indie process. Because in the beginning, when you're not getting paid, a lot of people don't show up. And a lot of times just in the beginning, I loved it so much, and I was just like constantly learning that I always showed up. And now that I'm older, I don't show up as much because I don't have to. Like I have like there's other things that are like I want to do my own work, and like I'm more my time seems more finite, even though I don't know if it is or not. Yeah, I think just showing up, and not necessarily, you don't have to be best friends with everyone, but like you have those connections, because everyone in like an indie community and just the film and TV, they want to make more stuff. Like we love creating, so there's always stuff going on. Yeah.
And so you went from there into some more different productions. And I know recently you were in You played Rita Loud in a live adaptation of an animated series. Can you tell me a bit about that and what it was like to take an animated character to a real life character?
Sure, that was super fun. Like the Loud House animated series, it's going on it has five seasons. It's like it's a big hit, and it has a great fan following. So I played Rita Loud, who is the matriarch, the mother of the Loud family, which has 10 kids, 10 girls, 11 kids. Is there, this is,
Yeah.
there's 11. This is something that like I get wrong all the time, but then someone was like, no, it's okay. People forget their kids, especially when there's that many.
Yeah.
Because I sing that song and I'm like, I can put any words into it. Like I just like adapt it and like I'm just
Mhm.
making a jingle based on that rhythm. But it was fun because Rita Loud, the mom, she was like already established. She already had her quirks. We knew who she was and her family. And so, and just the entire like production from hair and makeup to the stylist, to the director and the executive producers, like everyone knew what we were doing. And it was so beautifully created. Like when I stepped on set the first time, it looked like the Loud house out of a cartoon. And I'm like, how did they do this? How did they find this house in real life that looks like their actual house? But they're really good at their job. So much of the work was taken care of. The script was like funny and great. And it was so easy just to step into her. And yeah, I mean, I was worried about like fans of like making sure they were happy. But I just did my best, and I'm really proud of it. I think it's a really fun, like I think everyone in the cast did such a good job. Like
Mhm.
they did such a good job. I mean, yeah, so I'm impressed but it was so much of a team effort involved to get us there.
And from your early days doing more like indie productions, how do you transfer those sort of acting skills and acting experiences into a production more like what you did with Read Aloud?
Oh, it's so easy because like you just have to show up on set, you sit in a chair and someone like you just get so taken care of. And then when I say easy, maybe it's not like easy, like it's always you're working, but
Hmm.
when you are on an indie set, you are in charge of like your own everything, your own wardrobe, hair and makeup. Like it is, and that's not true for like all. Like some low indies like have a decent budget, but I think it's just so nice to have your space and a team taking care of you. It's really it's it's lovely in a way, but there's also more pressure involved because you have like everyone, like the studio, the producers, like everyone's looking over you and making sure it fits. In a way that can be comforting because you're doing your job right and that it is going to come out well, where sometimes when you're working indie, they're like,
Hmm.
ugh, well, sound was bad, we had to scrap that scene. um
Right.
yeah, so it's really nice to be able to just work the gamut. I still really appreciate indie film sets, because there's just so much passion, and it to get your own work made, I think is
Mhm.
like really incredible and a feat. And so, but there is also something of just like on that other side to know what money can do, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, is
Mhm.
that what you were asking? I think.
Yeah, yeah, and just like what the experience is like and the difference. But I know you have done some writing yourself, just like you were talking about creating your own sort of pieces. And I believe you wrote Intersection, and you
Hmm.
started as well. Can you tell me about that and what inspired you to create that?
Sure. Intersection is about a neighborhood. It's a fictional neighborhood, but it's kind of based off of a fictional neighborhood in Atlanta that is going through growth and changes,
Hmm.
gentrification, and it takes a look at all of the people involved in the neighborhood, that community, and their lives. So I was one of the writers. We had a writers' room of 5 people and 5 females, and that was great. That was something we kind of consciously did, and also like was a co-producer and acted in it. And it is one of those things, like I
Mhm.
watched one of those scenes where I had just like one scene for the day, and so I was like half of the time I was directing traffic as a producer, at like, because that's just all hands on deck.
Okay.
That's what you do. And then when it was my scene, I was like, I am so tired. Like, we didn't have hair and makeup, which is something like I actually fought for. I really tried to get hair and makeup because it is just such a load off of a female's mind
Right.
when, I can't see the back of my head. So I don't know what it looks like, especially when you're shooting on location. So,
Mhm.
but I just this scene, not to be vain, but my hair was like so just like end of day, like frizzy and just not it is what it is. It's real life, it's not
Mhm.
it's not that big of a deal, but that's just like one of those moments on indie film sets when you are doing everything. Like I care now that I can take a step back and be like, oh, I wish I had brushed my hair before that. But when you're on it, it's like go, go, go. We're losing daylight. We need this shot, and I'm just like changing out of my like PA clothes into wardrobe and doing it. So it's a great, but it feels so good in those moments where you're like got a little pinch of like, oh, that didn't look exactly like I like, but yet that's our
Mhm.
creation from start to finish. So that feels so great.
Mhm. And what was it like writing on a team of like all female writers?
A lot of rewrites, I would say.
Okay.
We were in March of 2020. We had like scheduled the shoot to
Mhm.
shoot it, and then when like there was the lockdown and stuff that happened, and we didn't know what was going on as the rest of the world. So
Right.
we shut down, and it actually the next year in March of 2021 we were able to shoot again, still like not knowing, but we were like, you have to move forward at some point. So
Okay. Yeah.
uh so yes, like, but so we took that time that year. We had
Mhm.
writers meetings every week. We did them over Zoom,
Okay.
and it we rewrote the series, and there's a lot of creative differences that you have in writers' rooms, especially when we were creating something that we were like, we knew what we wanted to say, but it's like sensitive and difficult, and lots of different opinions, because we tried to create a diverse writers room as well. And I think in wanting to like amplify everyone's voice, it's just,
Mhm.
I would say it's challenging. And especially like now I'm part of a writing team, and I have this view of how I think this scene's going, and then my partner has like a different perspective, and I just find myself being like, okay, like this is just, they're just words right now, so I will shrink, not shrink isn't the right word, but I'm gonna be less controlling about my
Mhm.
desire, and open, because I like to think of these moments of maybe non-congruity is like pinches to move in a different way to expand. And so you have to be willing to work together, and my ideas aren't precious, they are just ideas.
Right.
And i think I think having that perspective is helpful. And overall, when you step back, you're
Mhm.
like, oh, I mean, because like there were some tense moments in those writers rooms, but now when
Mhm.
it's done, it's like, all right, yeah, like we created something together, and we are better for it.
So it's definitely rewarding at the end.
It is, yeah, it is.
Mhm.
Oh, definitely rewarding. Even if like I would do things differently. Like there were some like red flags we had about people,
Mhm.
and we were like, but those red flags were there because they were red
Right.
flags. So I think we could have been a little more proactive in some things, but yeah, but very rewarding.
And since you're obviously a very creative person, you've also started a podcast, uh,
Yes.
Counter Parenting. What was the inspiration for that, and what are the kind of topics that you cover when you do this podcast?
So Counterparenting is a podcast that I started. It's like parenting from a step parent perspective. And it just there was just so much trials and tribulations over the COVID in general of homeschooling. And when you're a step parent, you're like, there's still two different like households involved, even though you're just part of this one household. And it's
Mm-hmm.
complicated. And I feel, and I still feel this way that, and maybe rightly so, but like step parents, they're just sitting on the sidelines a lot of times, even if they have like an active opinion or like communication in parenting, they're still not like these like primary biological parents. And I it was a struggle for me to understand what my role was. So I started this podcast to speak to experts about it, and I did. And podcasting is I kind of, it was difficult for me to like get like the technology side of it down, and finding those guests
Mm-hmm.
that were like, because I think I found that I didn't necessarily hear what I wanted to hear, which was like, do A, B, and C, and then you will be a success. It was just like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, that situation can come up and it's difficult. And I'm like, yeah, I know
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult. I just want a little more. I want a little more help. So I am revamping it
Okay.
into more of a comedy podcast of like the horrors of step parenting, and not so much as like direct experience from mine, but we'll have like guests that have, we're going to have them on anonymously and tell just some
Mm-hmm.
crazy stories, because I think that for me is like, oh, okay, I'm not alone in this crazy stuff has happened to you too.
Right.
And I think it'll be funny because it'll, some of these things are so unbelievable. So yeah,
Mhm.
I got like this, we did like the 1.0 and now we're on the 2.0.
Okay. And so your goal with this podcast then is to kind of feel not alone yourself, but also make others feel that way too.
Yes. So to empower other step parents, because there was just some things that I had wished I knew what they were, like a parenting plan. How important is that? Like what even is that? If you like, unless you've been divorced and like, or a child of divorce, you might not even know what that is. Um, so to educate and empower, just to kind of create community. That's not judgmental. I think there's so much like of like how to parent and how you are supposed to feel. And I mean, I see it not just in my own life, but in other people's lives, that parenting is not just all sunshine and daisies. And and we know that, but I think like from a parent's perspective, like it's, there's some like, they're so tired, parents are so tired all the time, and then they're like, no, I love it. And I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, but you can sometimes not love something, not like two. I just
Mhm.
wish there was sometimes more real talk, but without having blame on anyone. And just like, there's some people that are like, children first, like, and I get that, yes, children first, but also like, you have to be a full whole person. I don't know. It's like complicated, but I'm looking for like community, like, because the step parent is,
Mhm.
it's just like it's something nobody really talks about unless you are.
Well, I mean, even like Hollywood kind of creates these tropes about step parents sometimes in movies, like Wicked Stepmother,
Yes.
etc.
Well, I say like,
And yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, but I was like, I'm like, I guess I'm just taking on like the way it sometimes feels. I'm like, maybe I like can, there's those tropes, I see how they get labeled, because like I'm not adored and like
Mhm.
fanned over. I'm the other. And even though I didn't come in as the other, I have like, I am now the other parent. And in the beginning, it's like, oh, cool, yeah. And then it's like, then I take on a parental role of caring and
Yeah.
discipline and And so it's easy, instead of the kids playing against their parents, they sometimes play the step parent against it because I don't know how, like, what, I mean, they've got these minds that are still developing, and it's just easier to, like, if something's not working out for them, like, to blame. And instead of blaming mom or dad, it's like blame stepmom or stepdad. So that's where I think the tropes come from because,
For
you
sure.
know, I don't try to be evil, but I sometimes I'm like, how did that become my fault?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, it seems like you try to find creativity in everything you do, be it acting, writing, or even parenting. Um, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Sorry, it's a little.
yeah, I try to. I guess there is a delay, but yes, Grace, I try to. I try and like enjoy life and have fun and like I find joy in creating, and like that makes me a creative person.
And in terms of that, do you still want to continue doing things where you're able to like do more things at once, like you said?
Um, yes, but it is, I would love to, like, a screenplay that I've written, like, I want to
Hmm.
be in it because I wrote it for me, and so I want
Right.
it to be made, and I want to have like creative control over it because it's my vision. But the crowdfunding um, takes up, I think, takes up so much of that,
Hmm.
that like doing kind of scrappier shorts and comedic like skits, yes. But I feel like I really want to get
Hmm.
like a feature made, and that just requires resources. And that is the
Right.
fundraising skill is not a skill. It's something that I'm like, ooh, you please do that. But those people that are really good at fundraising want to do that for their own projects. So that is
Mhm.
just, it is, I want to do that, but I want the money to just appear. So I'm putting that out into the universe. That's how money works, right? It just falls off of trees. That's what I've heard.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much that's how it works. And do you find in Hollywood there is enough, well, not even enough, but there are resources for women to create and to have those opportunities?
There are definitely organizations, resources, grants in place. There are like like the film fest. I don't want to say it is still. I think it is still a lot of who you know and networking, even within these
Hmm.
organizations. That when you submit, to a really like a festival, unless you know someone in that festival, like it is so difficult. And I think to rise up, and I think that is okay because the projects that do rise up they're still good. They just might have some
Right.
connections. So I do, I think the way the studio makeups, like, there's internally still like shifts for diversity and inclusivity that need to be made, but I think
Mhm.
as far as female empowerment and like female resources, I think I think we are there for each other, and yeah. What do you think?
I mean, I have like some studies in human rights and such too, and I mean, there's always room for improvement, I think, as well,
Hmm.
especially for women, marginalized communities, LGBTQ, anybody that's trying to create. I think we're definitely seeing more voices and different perspectives. But like I said, I think there's always room for improvement, and the more resources, the better.
Yes, agreed. 1000%.
So.
Yeah.
And in terms of that, just to kind of finish everything off, you said you kind of want to perhaps make a screenplay and then star in it. Is there anything else coming up for you in terms of writing, films? I know you're changing your podcast up.
Yeah, I'm like, being an actor is so interesting because sometimes it's hurry up and wait. I have
Mhm.
there are there's like things that I filmed last year that have like NDAs that haven't come out yet. But
Right.
it's everything's just a work in progress. I always say it's just like a
Mhm.
TBD, but I'm kind of like still like I'm part of that TBD of like what is going on, please. So with that said, as far as like creative endeavors that I have control over, like just writing more. And then I feel like once I have like a couple of screenplays and projects, it's easier to shop those. Be like, oh, because like you
Yeah.
this, and then hopefully get some traction on those. And then we'll see what else happens.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds great. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Um, where can everybody find you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. You can find me, I think the best place is probably Instagram at Muretta Moss, Murettamoss. That's my handle. So yeah, come on by, say hi.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much and good luck with your coming projects. We wish you all the best. And that concludes the episode for today. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye.